Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a question that's right on the edge of science and philosophy, a real mind-bender.
So is our reality actually shaped by our consciousness? I mean, really. We're going to look at some pretty extraordinary claims that suggest our minds aren't just watching the show. They might actually be writing the script, with a real, measurable impact on the physical world.
Okay, so first up, we've got a massive, long-running experiment, a project that's been hunting for the footprint of a global mind, hidden in a worldwide network of machines.
So back in 1998, this thing called the Global Consciousness Project, or GCP, set up these physical random number generators. You can just think of them as super high-tech coin flippers. They put them in about 70 spots all around the globe. And the big idea? To just watch them. See if these things, which are supposed to be completely random, suddenly start acting, well, not so random, especially during big global events when we're all paying attention to the same thing.
And here's how it works. It's actually pretty cool. Every single second, each machine spits out 200 random bits. That's like 200 coin flips. All that data gets sent to a main server in Princeton, and they're looking for one thing. During moments of huge collective emotion, things like 9/11 or a major natural disaster, do these machines get, well, less random? Is it possible that our shared focus is literally bringing a little bit of order to the chaos?
This analogy is perfect for understanding what they're after. Imagine all those random number generators are just buoys floating in the ocean. Normally, they'd all be bobbing up and down totally independently, right? But what they're looking for are those moments where it's like all the buoys, all across the world, suddenly start bobbing in perfect unison. A strange, synchronized dance that just shouldn't be happening by chance.
So, what are the results? I mean, after looking at over 345 of these big global moments, well, the result is provocative, to say the least. It's a deviation of more than 6 sigma. Now, to give you some context, 5 sigma was the gold standard, the discovery level for finding the Higgs boson. 6 sigma, the odds of that happening by chance are less than 1 in a billion. Yeah, 1 in a billion.
Okay, so that's observing a weird connection. But what if we could take it a step further? What if we could actually influence reality? Our next case file makes an even bolder claim. Not just seeing a connection, but actively hacking reality through focused group consciousness.
Listen to this quote from a meteorologist. It was almost like we had a hurricane repellent. He's talking about this weird period between 2006 and 2014. A preliminary study suggested that during a time of large-scale group meditation practices, there was this really significant drop in hurricanes hitting the U.S. coast. And get this, the pattern supposedly reversed when the group practices stopped. Crazy, right?
But the really famous example, the one you always hear about, is this experiment in Washington, D.C. back in '93. For 2 months, a big group got together to do transcendental meditation, and during that exact time frame, violent crime in the city dropped by 25%. A 25% drop! They call this the Maharishi effect, and the idea is that this kind of focused group coherence can actually calm down the stress and violence in the whole area around them.
So look, what on earth could explain any of this? I mean, if these effects are even remotely real, what's the mechanism? Well, according to some physicists and philosophers, we've basically got everything backwards. So there's this physicist, John Hagelin, and he's got this pretty wild theory. He suggests that the most fundamental thing in the universe, what physicists call the unified field, the source of everything, is actually one and the same as pure consciousness. So in this view, when someone is deep in meditation, they're not just chilling out, they are literally tapping into the operating system of the universe.
And this just completely flips the script on how we think about things. The normal view, the materialist view, is that matter is the basic stuff. You get a complex lump of matter like a brain and boom, consciousness pops out of it. But this other view, the idealist view, says, consciousness is the fundamental thing, and matter, the brain, the physical world, all of that emerges from consciousness. Mind-blowing, right?
And then you have cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman, who takes this idea and just runs with it. He says, look, what you think is reality, it's not. It's an interface. It's like the desktop on your computer. You see that little blue icon for a file, right? That icon isn't the actual file. It's not the ones and zeros and the circuits. It's just a handy little symbol that lets you use the computer without your head exploding. Hoffman's argument is that evolution did the same thing for us. It gave us a simplified headset, a user interface that hides the true, mind-bogglingly complex nature of reality just so we can survive and find a banana.
Okay, now, as you can probably imagine, these ideas are, let's say, not exactly mainstream.
In fact, they face a ton of skepticism and criticism from the scientific community.
Let's go back to the Global Consciousness Project. Skeptics look at that Six Sigma result and say, hold on a second. They argue it's not a global mind. It's just our human minds doing what they do best, seeing patterns where there aren't any. It's like looking at clouds and seeing a dragon. The big concern is selection bias, that maybe the researchers, even unconsciously, are picking and choosing the data that just happens to fit their theory.
And here's a really big hurdle for a lot of these theories. It's something at the very heart of the scientific method. You have to be able to prove it wrong, right? A good theory has to make a clear, testable prediction. If it doesn't, it's not really science. And the criticism here is that many of these ideas about consciousness are just too vague. They don't make specific predictions that you could actually go out and test and potentially prove false.
And one more, this one's a biggie. A lot of these theories really lean on quantum physics, specifically the idea that a conscious observer is needed for reality to, well, become real. But most physicists will tell you that's a misunderstanding. In quantum mechanics, an observation is just an interaction. A particle bumping into a detector counts as an observation. You don't actually need a person in a lab coat looking at it.
So where does all this leave us? We've seen some really weird data, some incredibly bold theories, and some very sharp, very valid criticisms.
The final takeaway here isn't a simple yes or no answer. It's really that this whole debate is what's important. It highlights this huge, persistent mystery at the heart of science. It forces us to keep asking that big, unanswered question. What is this thing we call consciousness? And what is its real place in the universe? Which leaves us with one last question to chew on. What if consciousness isn't something we have inside our heads, but something we're all swimming in? A fundamental field that we all participate in. It's an idea that really challenges everything we think we know about who we are and what reality is. And it just goes to show, we've still got a lot of exploring to do.